Hello everyone, this is Chelsea from Those with Words. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am showing you a slightly sped up version of me working on my 2 travel journals from the Japan trip. Now I realize it's been about over a month actually since I got back from Japan, and yet I am still working on the travel journals. Usually I'm much faster at getting the travel journals done, but this time around I think it's just the sentiment that if I really finish them, this trip will truly be over, and I'm getting a little bit silly about it, and so it's taking me a little bit longer to finish. So I have used these cute panda page markers to put into the pages where I really want to take my time illustrating a couple of things from the trip. And the first thing that I'm drawing now is a notebook from Kakimori. I created a custom notebook at the shop, and I really wanted to draw the cover of it and also talk a little bit about the types of papers that were used inside. And so that's the first illustration that I'm working on. So usually I go in with pencil first, and then I go over it with pen, and then you're seeing me use this pencil board. It's a really old pencil board from Hobonichi Techo. And I am using that Hobonichi brand pencil board just because I don't want any oils or sweat from my hands to affect the rest of the page. So now I am sketching out the 4 types of papers, really simple doodle with the cover on top of it. And so the idea is to have the composition of the custom notebook onto this page. And what I'm doing now is I'm using the Uni pen, and it's a waterproof pen, and I really like it. I believe I'm using the 01, which is very fine. And so I'm just kind of going over all of the outlines. I could probably have done this without having used pencil, but I like to play it safe because I am not a very experienced artist, and so I just like to go over it with pen and then go through the extra step of erasing everything afterwards. And I took my time working on this illustration. I didn't want to rush through it or anything, and now you're seeing me dry the illustration a bit with my pencil board and going forward with my eraser and just making sure that all the pencil marks are gone before I start using watercolor. I thought about bringing watercolor to the trip with me myself. The one that I'm using right now, this palette, is the Travelers Company and Art Toolkit collaboration palette, and I filled it with some of my favorite colors. This one was really no rhyme or reason, and I have some kind friends to thank me for sharing their paints so that I could fill in this palette with, like I said, some of my favorite colors. And I am using a little bit of blue here for the closure of the notebook. And I'm just going in slowly, mixing in different colors with this Pentel water brush and filling in the rest of this notebook. So like I was saying, I thought about actually bringing a watercolor palette with me on the trip, but then I decided not to do that just because I felt like it would really bulk up the carry of what I actually had to bring with me every single day. And realistically, I wasn't sure that I would actually sit down and watercolor somewhere, whether it was, at a cafe outside or whether it was when I came back to the, hotel or Airbnb that we stayed at every night, because I was just so tired every time I came back, and my feet were hurting, and most of the nights all I wanted to do was just relax. And so I had trouble just keeping up with even putting down ephemera for that day every single day. So all in all, I do think it was a good decision to not bring something extra with me on the trip, just to make it a little bit easier on myself, a little less pressure, and there's always, photos to refer to and things I can draw at home. So right now I am just trying to mix the colors of the cover. So the cover has like a couple of different colors distributed on it, and they don't really have like a clear line in between them. I'll try and insert a reference photo either here or towards the end of this particular drawing. And it's just, I'm trying to blend in the lines a little bit better so that it looks a little bit more all blended together instead of all, different colors starkly standing apart from each other. And then I think here I decided to use this other watercolor set that I have. I received this one in a stationery selection box from a long time ago. And I have this really beautiful copper color on it, and that is perfect for like the hardware part of the notebook. And so I have these, the spirals are this like bronze copper color, and then the little edges of the notebook in the front where I reinforced it with some extra hardware, that's also the same color. So I decided to use that to really highlight it. And here I'm going back in with just that leftover yellow color, and I am just coloring in one of the 4 papers because only one of the 4 papers that I got for this notebook was cream, and the rest were pretty like crisp white or really like slightly off-white color. So that is the illustration for the Kakimori custom notebook. And then the next one I wanted to do was Team Planets Tokyo, or TeamLab Planets Tokyo. And I basically wrote, I just erased it, but I wrote like a little summary of what I wanted to draw with my pencil. And basically there was an exhibition where inside this TeamLab exhibition, there were like a couple of things that we could go see and interact with and do. My favorite one by far was this like flower exhibit where you kind of sit in like a dome, and there are, generated flower illustrations and artworks, computer generated, and they just kind of like float above you and they fall, and it was just a very like beautiful continuous type of exhibit, and it really stuck with me. So I decided to try my best to recreate the feel of it. As you'll see towards the end, it is, if you've been to this exhibit or you've seen photos of it, this is definitely not the best rendition of the exhibit. So far from it, but I just wanted to recreate the feeling that I had when I saw a bunch of different really colorful, petals of flowers just kind of like falling on me, almost as part of the dome as I was sitting under that generated illustration. And it's like a moving illustration, right? Like moving artwork. So it was just really interesting to sit there for, I think I sat there for like 10 to 15 minutes or something, I don't know. And there were people who had gotten to that exhibit before me who stayed after me as well. So I think it left a strong impression on like a really good number of people when I was there. And it was just really fun, and it just felt so ethereal and serene to sit there, and it was such a nice break. We've been walking so much over, the last couple of days prior to this. As you can see on the top left-hand side, this was day 4 of our trip. So this was just when I was starting to run out of energy a little bit after just like lots and lots of walking every single day. Not just on the sidewalk, but also just through the subway stations. It was just so much walking and stair climbing that I was starting to lose my energy for the trip. And I was like, wow, I have 8 more days to go and I'm already tired. So TeamLab was actually a really nice break that morning to just be able to like sit down, admire the exhibit, move on, interact with something, sit down again. And so that was actually a really good idea, and I'm glad that we were able to go to this one. So TeamLab Planets took about, I would say, we gave it some, good time, and it took around like 2 hours-ish. I think you are able to maybe go back to certain things that you really wanted to see and explore a little bit more. It only has like timed entry basically, but I think once you're in there, unless they really move you along because maybe there was a big crowd or something like that day, you are able to take the time you need to view the exhibit. I would say the only one that was an exception to that was that flower one on the bottom right. That one we were rushed out of because there were just so many people. But the dome illustration, or like the feeling of it, like I said, I just basically illustrated a bunch of petals and that's all I did. And I remember what it's like. So that's, what I tell myself, that's what's the most important. It doesn't have to be perfect. And here are the two drawings side by side. And that is that for this notebook, which I really focused on, Tokyo. And then this other notebook I had to dedicate to trips, what I called it trips from Tokyo Station. So Kurashiki, Osaka, and Kyoto. I was detailing my visit and everything there in this notebook. And this right here is me trying to illustrate the Superior Labor Custom Traveler's Notebook. And I was looking at a photo at first, and then I realized I don't have to do that. I have it right here next to me. So I grabbed it and I am trying my best to illustrate this. I'm just gonna tell you right now that this doesn't exactly end up in the way that I want it to, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. The process was fun and that's really what matters. And at the end of the day, I can take a look at my drawing and see what I tried to draw. So that's, I'm giving myself some grace there, even though it's not really gonna turn out as nice as I wanted to. So I'm trying to capture most of the details here as best as I can, but obviously, as you can see, some of the details in the patch, it's really, really intricate. And then at the top there, at the TSL Kurashiki stamp, there are just lots of details that I am just not going to be able to capture in this small drawing. So I just try my best to keep like the outline of things, but I didn't really bother with trying to really, really go in detail because I feel like that would just have taken a really, really long time. And for me, the important thing was to illustrate, hey, wouldn't it be cool if in the middle of this spread, I drew the custom TN that I created at the store and I can kind of, write notes about it around it. I thought that would be a really fun idea. Instead of, maybe drawing it on one side and then dedicating the other page to writing. And so I think the easiest part for me here was sketching it in pencil and then outlining it with the Unipin pen again. And so that's what I'm working on now. While I'm actually speeding through this, one thing I will tell you is I started carrying this traveler's notebook around recently and I just kind of like threw it in my tote. I don't really, I'm not super careful with my traveler's notebooks. Also, forgive me, you'll see just like a little bit of my head because I really needed to take a look at that. And then I'm also using the Arteza color pencil. This was also my mistake, I think. In retrospect, I feel like I should have used watercolor, but on both sides I had already written with fountain pen. So yeah, you can see the marks already. It's not great, but I'll just keep showing you because this is part of the process. So as I was saying, I have been taking this traveler's notebook out and about recently, and the stamping is actually smudging a little bit because I just like throw it into my tote bag and I just go out without any care about what actually happens to the traveler's notebook. If you know me, you know that I love the wear and tear on a traveler's notebook and all of the patina and scratches and things. So I was actually really excited to have some opportunities to carry this traveler's notebook outside with me. And I don't know, I think maybe the leather part or where it was stamped, it like rubbed really hard against like the tote cloth part or something like that. And so some of the stamping has smudged and is like sort of continuing to smudge despite the fact that I've tried to heat set it and do a couple other things. It's kind of like that first scratch that you get on your traveler's notebook. I like to think that I you know, I take it around with me. I'm sad about the first big scratch, and then after that I just have, you know, no care for it in terms of course I care for how my traveler's notebook, you know, if it needs like, you know, fixing or something like that, but I just, you know, I try not to baby it at all, and so that's what I mean. I just kind of throw it into my bag and go, and I think I can be a little bit less careful with this traveler's notebook now that some of the stamping has smudged, and I can just like take it around with me and be a little bit more carefree with it. I'm going back in with the uni pin pen here, by the way, because as I'm coloring it in with the black colored pencil, I'm realizing all of the details that I drew in of the stamping will be lost if I don't highlight it in some way. And so I went back in and I outlined a lot of the doodles that I did, especially of the stamps, and I colored in the rest as best as I could. And then I picked out some of the other colors to color in the patch. This is the turtle patch that I'm working on. And so it's got green, brown, and yellow elements to it. And so I'm using those colored pencils and just kind of coloring in the background with a slightly more like yellow-green, lighter green type of color. And then all the brass elements as well, I'm combining yellow and brown. So I'm showing you a close-up here, and yeah, as you can see by my thumbs down, I didn't really love how it turned out, but I kind of shrugged it off. I was like, you know, it was nice to try, and it was fun to, you know, take like maybe 15 minutes or so to try and draw that instead of, you know, putting a photo of it in there. So it was worth a try, even if it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And for the last illustration that I'm working on in this video, I am working on like a little wooden tag, and this was from a shop. The business card is right there. I think it's called Toy Hoff. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this place had a ton of like wooden toys for kids, and it was so cute. They had like little clocks and just like lots of little cars and other things like made of wood, and it was really, really nice. And outside the store, they had a little tag making station where they had different elements, so different backgrounds and sizes of the tags, and then different elements like animals and, you know, utensils and all of these things, and you could combine it to make a little tag. And so my partner and I were just passing by, and I was like, oh, that's so cute, and we were walking away basically when we realized we can make like a little room tag for our nephew. And so the three elements I ended up choosing for the tag were a spoon and a fork, because, you know, he loves eating. He's a great eater. Our nephew loves food. And then there was also a little dog, which I thought was really cute because he is part of a family with 2 dogs. So, and then basically you put all the elements together, you walk inside, and then the person inside helps you not only glue down those elements to the tag itself, but then we were also able to like solder in his name, our nephew's name, onto this tag. And I mean, I kept that off of the drawing just for privacy reasons, but it was just such a little special gift, and I thought it was really adorable. And it was really nice to be able to make something like that. It's so unique. I haven't seen that anywhere else. I'm just mixing some colors here. This one was really simple because the wood color was pretty even throughout, and I think I, you know, ended up making the tag a little bit more yellow than I had hoped, and I'm just kind of going back in with some lighter browns, but you get the idea. Even though it's not a perfect match for the light wood color, I mean, that's what the tag is, and I can immediately tell what that is when I look at it later in my journal. So that about wraps it up. I'm just showing you a close-up of the drawing, and I managed to do 4 drawings, which is not bad. I didn't take that long in this journaling session between the 2 notebooks, so it was really nice to be able to take the time to draw in these elements. I still have a couple more bookmarks. As you can see, the page markers, they're still not gone yet, so I have a few more things I want to illustrate, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed seeing my journaling process. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.